Midlife for years, I thought it was just a number, age, a marker on the road of life that we try to avoid. And we avoid thinking about it, we avoid talking about it. Well, that has been my personal experience. But now I'm here. Now I see it differently because I realize that midlife isn't just about age. It's not like it's between this age and this age. Well, there is information out there that says that, but I don't believe that. I truly believe that it's an awakening. It's about so many types of transitions because you can have a midlife awakening at 60, at 70, at 80. Like, let's just be honest. I was just watching this show called Tulsa King with, oh my gosh, I can't even remember his name right now because I'm in my whole midlife, my menopause mind just sort of like went blank. Sylvester Stallone, when he said on the show that he was 75, I was like, my gosh. And he is still the Sylvester Stallone I remember in my youth. I mean, granted, he looks differently, but his attitude and his persona was the same. And it made me really think, is midlife really about age or is it about the transition, the experience of awakening? I think it's about shedding the illusion that we've carried, stepping into a deeper, truer version of ourselves. I was just on a podcast with a very dear friend of mine today, and so much of what we were talking about is that exact thing. Because I used to think, here's what we came to in terms of digging deeper into our true version of ourselves. So I want to bring up this idea that I came up in my podcast conversation today, but was really brought to my attention from my amazing mentor, Teresa, and my forgiveness coach, Brenda. We were having a conversation around sort of these big emotions that I've been feeling a lot lately. Granted, some of that comes from the menopause phase, right? And then also this midlife space. I'll be completely honest with you. I am in a different space and I'm scared. I'm scared because I don't have control. I don't want control. And it's not like a petrified, terrified fear. It's scared because I don't know. I don't know what to expect. And I honestly can say I don't know. So we were having a conversation about ego. And then it came up again today in my podcast interview. I was being interviewed and she brought up ego versus intuition. So I used to think my ego was my guide. I thought it was pushing me to achieve, to please, to prove myself, right? But the further I walked into this space of my midlife, the more I realized that ego is the noisiest passenger. Like, remember when cell phones first started out, everybody would talk on it everywhere. And it's just like, dude, shut it. Like, take your conversation outside. That's sort of what I think ego has played with me. And last year, a book that I helped bring together, a collaboration of 20 women through my beautiful friend, Kristen, who owns a boutique publishing house. We put together a book called She Leads from Within, how intuition is what guides us women. And I realized that my opposite side of ego. So let's just say, okay, ego, shut up. I don't want to hear from you. But what is there other than ego? Like what's the thing that sort of replaces the ego that has been driving my train? And I realized that it's intuition. Intuition is this quiet, steady voice. That's where the real wisdom lies. And there's this moment somewhere in the midst of midlife. For me, it's now. Actually, for me, it was when I started working with my forgiveness coach. This midst of midlife where I just stopped running. I just stopped chasing after what the world has been telling me that I want, the titles that they've given me, the approval that I've been just begging for, the validation, the perfection. And I just stopped. I mean, it just got Why? Because I was so exhausted. It's exhausting to live that way. I mean, you know what I'm saying. I know I'm not in this alone. And when I started digging real deep into the recesses of my soul and the spaces that I held on to because I didn't want to forgive it because I want them to pay the price for the pain that they caused me and all the things, right? When I cleared that space and I truly forgave and let go, I started listening to my soul that had been whispering. I get kind of teary eyed saying this because for me, that whisper sounded so beautiful. It sounded so loving. And she sounded so compassionate and so generous, so kind and so warm. And she kept telling me, it's time to let go. Let go of who you thought you had to be. Let go of the fear that you're running out of time. Let go of the ego that says you're only as good as your. And when I did, that's when I woke up. That's when I realized that this space, this time in my life that I call the midlife, this is the beginning. This is not the end. This is the start of something extraordinary because there's so much more room inside of me, right? Like my level of creativity and my level of peace went up by 10 decibels. I mean, let's just talk about ego for just a second. I believe that ego shouts, it demands, it thrives on comparison, and it definitely always thinks it's in control because it's that voice that's telling me that I'm not enough, that what I have to do doesn't really matter anymore. I don't matter anymore. My value. Now, I would never say these things out loud, but this is the internal dialogue that whispers, right? But then when I really made space, when I released, when I forgave and released a lot of shit, y'all, intuition came through and she started whispering. She started whispering to me, trust me, I know you. I've always known you, always been there for you. I've just been waiting for you to turn down the volume of everything else so you can hear me. Oh my gosh. You know, my time away from my business these past few months, that's the whisper. That's what I've learned. I've learned that ego will tell me to cling on to who I've always been because it's safe, it's comfortable, even though it's miserable and it's sad and it's all the things I don't want, right? It's suffering, it's pain. I don't want any of that stuff, but it's comfortable because I know that feeling. And what I've learned is intuition. She is inviting. She invites me to become who I've always been. And that shift, that's where I truly believe is the magic of midlife. That's it, ladies. As a woman, we've been taught to play small, to shrink ourselves. I mean, even not in the most strong, verbal, loud, rooftop yelling, stay small, stay tiny, but it's in spaces where like we settle for a job that's less than us because gosh, we don't want to ruffle the feathers, right? We don't talk about our financial uncertainties, our financial unknowns. We don't talk about, you know, what's happening to us, like our libidos as we're aging, as we're becoming something different. We don't talk about what it really feels like to go out there and want more for ourselves when we feel a little bit like we've gained some weight. Everything is not together for us the way that we imagined it would be by the time we hit midlife. Like for some reason, we thought when we hit midlife, we would have all of our shit together. I really believe that that is a bunch of crap. I believe that that language, that way that society communicates that is what has taught us to stay small and to shrink ourselves, that we can't have big feelings, that we can't have an idea of not knowing and not being okay. Like somehow that's not okay to not be okay, all the shit, right? And all of those things are making us feel unsafe. And so we won't push forward if it feels unsafe because we have generationally understood that unsafe potentially could mean being burned at the stake. But here's what I'm saying. This is why I created Her Truth Revealed, because midlife is calling us to expand, to step into our strength, our sensuality, our creativity, and our inner and intellect without apology. Not bitchiness, not I'm right, you're wrong, not I'm better than you. No, 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 no. It's about my energy with your shared energy becomes a bigger force of goodness and love because we need to really redefine feminine identity. It's not just about us as individuals. It's about all of us leading a cultural shift, a movement. It's about showing the world that aging isn't a loss of relevance. It's a gain in power. And midlife women, we are friggin' amazed. We're wiser, smarter, a little bit richer, a little bit less rigid, a little bit like we're just so we're such a juicier version than we've ever been. And we really need to step into leading the charge. So when we decide to stop living for the ego, which isn't easy, it takes time because ego has been that driver for quite a long time. And I'm not saying we're severing ego because ego is sort of part of our survival mechanism, right? It's part of our human design. It's not like going anywhere, but we need to give it a new role, as my forgiveness coach explained. We need to give it a new role to exist in us. And we need to start living more from our intuition. Something amazing truly happens when we do that. I don't know if you've been looking for purpose, but you might find your purpose in this space. And honestly, purpose isn't about doing more. It's about being more of who you are. That, I believe, is purpose today. To be more of who you are, to be more present in the life that you live, to be more connected to the people that's around you and the spaces that's around you, and to be more alive. Ladies, this is what we are walking into. So to wrap it up, what I want to say is midlife has taught me that purpose isn't out there somewhere waiting to be found. We already have it. It is in the moments when we choose love over fear, creativity over conformity, and intuition over ego. So here's my invitation to you. Stop letting your ego tell your story. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm inviting you to stop letting your ego tell your story. Allow your intuition to write this next chapter. Awaken your truth that midlife isn't the middle, it isn't age, it isn't any of the preconceived ideas of what we think midlife is. It's the bridge to the most authentic, powerful version of ourselves. And if you're wondering whether it's too late, sisters, let me remind you, the best stories we're about to tell is the best of who we are. So you and I are just getting started. And until next time, I invite you to trust your intuition and fully embrace the awakening.